These are my concessions.
Challengers, starring Zendaya and two white dudes. So I'm going to tell you right now, because I told a dude about this movie, and they were already pissed off about one thing and one thing only. There is no sex scene that features Zendaya. There's no sex scenes, period. But this is still one of the most sexual films I've ever seen. Like, for real. So, Tashi, a former tennis protege turned coach, is married to a champion on a losing streak. All right? Her strategy for her husband's redemption takes a surprising turn when he must face off against his former best friend, Tashi's former boyfriend. So, the frame is a tennis match of two dudes that used to be best friend. Zendaya used to fuck around with one of them and is currently married to the other. Now, this movie jumps back and forth in time from the present, where they're having this tennis match, to the past, where we see how all of them have met and see the little twists and turns of their lives. So, Poppin' or not, overall Poppin' for sure. A very, very well-made film. Definitely will get some Oscar buzz. Zendaya's fucking awesome as usual. The cinematography was dope, and the character development was the strongest thing about the film. Everything made sense for what the characters were doing. And the makeout scene that you see crazily in trailers, you see them so much. You think that's going to turn into a sex scene. It doesn't. So she, has them make out with her. Then they all make out. And she kind of sits back and watches them two make out. And I'd say that that's what I just told you. If that makes you uncomfortable, you probably don't want to see the film, because that is not the gayest scene in the movie. There's a scene just where the two dudes are eating churros, and it's one of the most sexual scenes I've ever watched. It was done very, very well, and it made me uncomfortable, but I think it's supposed to make you uncomfortable because it's very invasive. It's really cool how the movie is about playing tennis and speaking a language. And in this film, there is a lot of conversations happening, but they're really talking about something else as opposed to the thing that they're actually talking about, if that makes sense. So the reason I bring up that makeup scene and her watching them two is because a couple days, I watched this Thursday, and yesterday I realized that her watching them two make out is extremely essential to the framework of the film, because her character Tashi is all about tennis. Tennis is her life. And the reason it's her life, and I may be paraphrasing, is because that's the only time you can truly know someone. And she gets excited when you have that language, because the first match that the two boys watch her do, she said that they only knew each other for a second. Like, there's a couple moments where they truly known each other, but not the entire match. When Zendaya's character is watching the entire match, she isn't as enthralled until the very, very end, for obvious reasons. It's like match point, very big scene. If you don't know what match point means, it means like the last point. Anyways, when she gets enthralled is when they all start to understand each other. And I don't want to give away too much, but the very, very final 2 minutes are excellent. Very well done. The whole final match scene is overall very well made. They even did some really cool camera tricks. Some more cooler than others. There's one point where they do a POV of the tennis ball getting hit across the court, and it looked kind of cool, but it was like, all right, let's go to regular shots. There's a lot of scenes of, it's good to showcase a character making a decision. It's very important for the audience to not only connect with the character, but watch their thinking process, especially if the actor can convey a character's thoughts without actually speaking. And the brown-haired dude, the troublemaker, the fire, is making a decision about whether or not he's going to go all the way. That's all I'll tell you in that part. It's a long, slow-mo scene, way too long. But it was important to show he was thinking. The final part is great. The final match is great. And the first half of the film, honestly, I dug more than the second half. Where it started to not necessarily fall apart, because I still think the movie is excellent, where I started to nitpick at things was they repetitively used this song as an indication of for me as a viewer, my interpretation was this is a tennis match that's happening. It's like a techno song. It's really loud. It plays over the dialogue a bit. And it usually happens during arguments, during tennis matches, or any time that there's conflict between two characters. So they use it as a plot device as opposed to the score of feeling good or sexy, or sometimes to feel good and sexy, but they use it incessantly. And the first 2 or 3 times I was like, oh, this is a plot device. Pretty clever. I hope that they don't do it too much. They did it way too many times. And I'm sure that people told Luca, the guy who directed it, like, hey, bro, you should maybe play that song less. And he's like, no. This is very important. I think he's Italian. That's my Italian accent. So that drove me nuts. And the time that they played it was, and I don't want to give anything away, but every time a character did something, it was conveyed in a way where I totally understood and I was with it. If you give me good character development, even conflicting characters that you don't like are making human mistakes or human choices that makes the story more interesting and a little bit more real because human beings are not perfect. You don't want to see perfect characters. You want to see characters make mistakes. But there's one mistake that Zendaya's character had about 3/4 of the way through the movie. The scene happens in Atlanta at 3 a.m. That's all I'll say. But ever since that point, I was like, what the fuck? That doesn't make sense. But I bought it. It's just, it really took me out of the movie when it really hooked me in with good character development. All in all, it is Poppin'. It's got great sound design, excellent sound design, besides that one fucking song. If you dug the remake of Suspiria, which I doubt many people have watched, I watched it. It doesn't compare to the original, and it's very, very different. It's very fucking weird, but I highly recommend watching it if you want to watch a weird fucking horror movie. The first Suspiria is one of the best horror movies ever. But Luca, can I try pronouncing his name? I probably don't have it written down here. Luca something or other. He's Italian. He did that, but most famously, he did Call Me By Your Name with Timmy Boy. He also did Bones for All, which is probably the film that can translate better to a broader audience, even though it's about cannibalism. It's a cannibalistic love story. He's an excellent director. And I also watched, before this film, I watched I Am Love with Tilda Swinton. That was also a very great film. So this director's really good. I think he will get nominated for this film. It is artsy for sure, but it is, specifically the first half, is a lot more catering to general audiences. But as the film progresses, especially after she makes a stupid fucking decision, it gets a little artsy. So Poppin' or Not is Poppin'. You don't need to see it in theater, but I will recognize, and I do love my Dolby, but seeing this in Dolby, I was like, this sound design is fucking dope. I just hated that song. That song is very annoying.